Hi everybody. Today we are going to do a before and after water change on my 40-gallon native tank here, but I have to catch everybody up on what's been happening in it because the videos I shot yesterday got deleted before I got them uploaded. So the main thing you're going to notice is very vigorous water flow. My backsplash is earning its keep, and it's definitely keeping the water off the wall. But I'm not sure what's going on with why that pump is pumping so much water like that. It was pumping almost none the other day. So I replaced the filter, assuming the filter was clogged, and it didn't really change much of anything. So I pulled the new filter material out. I scraped the grate. You know, it has the dial grate on it. You can dial it one way or the other to adjust the water flow. And I scraped it, and there were some snails on it and some leaves and, you know, just regular old stuff. Shouldn't have been stopping the water flow, but it was really, really reducing it. And so eventually I wound up tinkering around with the plug. I'm not sure what was going on with it, but when I plugged the plug into a different receptacle, I suddenly got full water flow. And so now this is turned all the way down. That's as reduced as I can make the water flow, and that has now had a filter in it for about 24 hours. So the filter is even clogged up significantly since we got this started yesterday, and that's, you know, reduced the water flow somewhat. So as of yesterday, the water was just gushing out of here, and that's as low as I can make it. So I'm wondering why all along it was never flowing like that, and if the extension cord that I had it plugged into wasn't malfunctioning or something. It wasn't getting full signal, because that's all I did was I unplugged it and I plugged it into a different receptacle, and boom, it started working. So I've got something else plugged into that same extension cord, and it's working just fine. So I got to check it and see if maybe the receptacle that this was plugged into was malfunctioning. I'm not sure. Maybe it was making poor contact. I don't know. I don't really have any idea how to explain why it was not flowing until I plugged it into a different receptacle. But we've got that going on, and because I was getting such low water flow in this tank, I actually put a second power head in. You can now see I've got two of them back there. They're fairly small. They are only 240 gallon per hour power heads, but I have two of them now. One is facing kind of downward across the back, and the other one is facing sort of upward just a little bit, but it's basically pushing the water in this clockwise kind of flow around the tank. So whether that clogs up or not, I'm going to have plenty of water circulation and water flow in the tank. Probably still not enough for me to keep sculpins. But, you know, maybe if I put an air stone in there and I put an air stone in front of the water power head and it disperses the bubbles through the tank, maybe that'll be vigorous enough oxygen in the tank that we could get a sculpin going on in there again. I don't know. Anyway, that's the update on everything I've done to the tank and what's going on in it. Now we need to just get some of that tannin stained water out of there, wipe that front glass down, and it'll be a whole lot better looking. Although I gotta say, with all of that vegetation and stuff on the top, it's going to block an awful lot of the light shining down into the tank, so it's not going to be as terribly wide open as we would like, but we'll see. Anyway, there is a good look at your before, and there's your after. So the water in this tank gets tannin stained really quickly. I've got a lot of pieces of wood in there, and since I collected them all from the stream, I have no idea how long they've been submerged in the water. They might have fallen this summer, and they've only been in the water for a month or two. Well, I guess last summer, I should say, now that we're into the middle of February. I can't really say this summer anymore. You know what I mean. It wasn't too terribly long ago that I collected them, so they may have recently fallen. Anyway, I've also got these pieces of wood from out in the yard, and since they were freshly fallen out of a tree and I broke them up and brought them in, I know those are still completely fresh. So lots of tannin stain very quickly in this tank. That was the biggest difference we can notice. You get that out of there and the tank looks a whole lot cleaner and clearer. I did stuff some more batting into the filter intake there, or the pump intake rather, and it slowed it down a little by the time the water change was done and I'd finished stirring up the water, and all the foam and everything that was swirling around has kind of been collected up by it. It's been maybe half an hour since I finished the water change, so it looks like it's reduced the flow just a little bit. I'm still really not sure how that flow got to be so strong just by plugging it into a different outlet. Again, I'm gonna have to check into that extension cord and see if there's something unusual going on in there. Anyway, not a lot to report. I cleaned the glass down. You can see I got that bright green cyanobacteria growing in here. Big surprise there. Of course, I brought that home, living on the rocks and everything, when I brought the stuff home, so it didn't get into the tank from being here in my fish room, although it would have eventually. It just, you know, I brought that home. I was fully expecting that. I wish the crayfish were doing a little better job cleaning up. Maybe I should feed the tank a little less, let them do a little more natural foraging. I think if they clean some of the stuff off the sticks and branches in there a little more thoroughly, I'd probably have a little bit less in the way of bright green cyanobacteria growing on stuff. But not too worried about it. Doesn't bother me. I just wanted it off the glass so I could look in there and see around clearly. I did see 2 crayfish simultaneously while I was in here. We had one over on this side that lives down in this general vicinity. I'm not entirely sure where it lives, but we can see it sitting right there, kind of hiding underneath that leaf. So we got that one, and then we have another one that lives down in there. So definitely saw 2. I looked around while I was in there as best I could, but you can tell there's a lot of places to hide. That big flat rock back there is a huge place to hide, so somebody could be under there. It's possible that there might be a third one in here, but it's been a long time since I've seen 3 crayfish simultaneously in this tank. So I'm beginning to think we're down to only having 2 in here. But remember, there can be only 1. This tank, it's, you know, a 40-gallon tank for this species of crayfish. I can't speak for other species. I know, like the little Mexican dwarf orange crayfish are a totally different species. I saw what they were calling a vanilla lobster at the Petco one time. And, you know, so there's different species of crayfish. There's different color breeds and so on and so forth. This species is called a virile crayfish. It's invasive to this area. So it is not a native fish, even though I caught it locally here in the stream. In fact, it's so invasive in this area that my entire life I don't think I've ever caught a crayfish anywhere that was not one of these virile crayfish. So they're pretty aggressive and they get pretty big. The body itself, without the claws, probably gets maybe 4 inches or 10 centimeters. And then you slap the claws on the front of that, and you can add another 1.5 inches or 2 inches in front of that. And that's a pretty hefty sized crayfish. And even the size they are now, they move around this whole tank. When they get out and about looking for food, you'll watch them walk all the way around all 4 corners of this tank. They scour everywhere. They climb up the tree. They get up on, you know, out of the water. And so the idea that one will have one little area and the other will have its own little territory is just not part of the equation. It's just going to boil down to, sooner or later, one of them is going to molt. And once they've sloughed their shell and become soft, it's only a matter of time before the other one gets a hold of it. In fact, if one becomes big enough and becomes much larger than the other one, it'll simply, you know, won't even wait until it's a soft shell. It'll just go and get it. And then this whole tank will be down to the one big crayfish. That's kind of what I expected. I'm sort of looking forward, not necessarily to all of the getting there bits, but I'm really looking forward to seeing one of these things last long enough to become a full-grown virile crayfish, because they're really big and they're pretty impressive, and they can get some really cool blue and purple colors on them. My camera doesn't do real well picking up the purple colors for some reason, or it takes brown and turns it into purple like it does with the red cyanobacteria. Anyway, I'm not going to get into that again. So there you go. That's it. That's all I did to the tank. Big water change. I did maybe 50%, 60%. The water coming out of my ground is so similar to the water that these animals live in the stream across the street anyway, that I can do huge water changes like that and it doesn't affect them at all. So probably 50 or 60% water change. I'm hoping you can kind of see the string of fish along the back glass there, because I keep telling everybody there really is quite a few fish in this tank. There's at least 15 or more of those gambusia in there. I've got several of the striped minnows that I think are some sort of Natropus species. And I hope somewhere still in there is that white suckerfish. I caught a small white suckerfish and put it in this tank, and I've not seen it since. But I haven't seen it dead. I haven't even seen bits of its body. I haven't seen it jump out of the tank anywhere. So it could still be in there. They're a pretty reclusive fish that lives on the bottom and hides under rocks and stuff. So it could still be hiding in there. We'll see. As it gets bigger, we'll find out. You can see one of those crayfish is on the move right now. In that back left-hand corner, he's not really moving at the moment, but he has come out from under his leaf. There's a little look at a few of them out and about swimming around. So there you go. My 40-gallon native tank. Thanks for watching. Hope you enjoyed. Make sure you're subscribed, and I will see you real soon on the next one.